and start record so I can do what I do here. And today I want to talk about some different things. And so I'm going to, for a second here, be shuffling around a bit while I'm talking. It's not going to take anything away from my talking, as you know. I'm usually doing this. This is kind of how I do. I trust that spirit works through me and speaks through me and tells me exactly what it is that I need to say when I need to say it, and that you guys, even when I say it wrong, will hear it correctly. So I tend not to worry about these things because it's so much bigger than what I am or what you are, this connectedness. So this past week, I have, we're here in Cleveland, and the weather has been crazy, so crazy. And so one of the things that I've been up to is trying to get I told you guys last week about my flower bed, and I've been trying to set out the rest of my plants because I wanted to, I set out like vegetables and stuff every year. And so anyway, this past week I was, out there, went and bought some, stuff to go into the, worked into my dirt, and I was setting out some other stuff. And I don't know if I mentioned to you guys that in this one bin, this compost, this place where I was composting, that's my raised bed garden where I put all my tomatoes at. It's like I look over in there, and literally I haven't put anything in there other than just turned over the dirt, and I have, like, it seems like 50 tomato plants coming up. And I don't know how that'll work out with all of them being so crowded on top of each other. I suppose when they get a little bigger, I might try to separate out some, but it's like all these tomato plants, and I love tomatoes, and I love salsa, and I love everything. So that's wonderful. But then the other day, and I'll tell you guys this quick story because it happened, and I always think that things happen for us to share. It's like things seem to happen to us, but they really happen for us for our growth. And then if I understand it and I get the lesson from it, if I share it with you, maybe you too will see a lesson in it for you. Anyway, I was this past week outside working in the flower bed, and it runs right up along someone else's yard. Now, my parents, back when we were little, this is the house. I live in the house that my parents bought when I was a year old, and it, we moved out of this house when I was 10 years old and moved into a bigger house out in the little suburb, out there, and a huge yard and everything like that. But when we were here, they had a fence put in because we were all little children. And the people in the neighborhood now joke about my parents because they said you actually had to make the cut in order to be to be let inside of the fence, where we are now. So I still have this old rickety fence that you can imagine that if I we moved here when I was a year old, that fence has got to be 40 years old at least. um, Without telling you guys my exact age, but it's got to be at least 40 years old. And so I'm outside working next to the fence where I have like an additional flower bed that I plant things in because it is on the east side of the property, and the sun comes up right there. It's a good place to plant. And so, I was turning over the soil and mixing in a little manure and all this other stuff into the dirt, along with some fertilizer, getting it ready for planting. And my neighbor next door, at first I heard some tapping on the window, and I couldn't make out, it was far away. I couldn't really make out anything that she was, what she was trying to get my attention. So I just kind of kept digging and turning over the soil. Next thing I know, now she's in her 80s, well into her 80s, and now living alone for the first time in, I mean, I don't know if this is the first time ever, but her sons has had a lot of problems for whatever reasons. But they are no longer there in the house. So she's staying by herself. So she taps on the window. She's banging on the window at first. I didn't see her. And then the next thing I know, she comes out and she screams out the door at me, and she says something like, get away from my yard. And I'm thinking, what? What is she talking about? And since we have a fence, there's a clear demarcation of where my yard begins and where hers ends. So there was, so I just, went on digging. And then the next thing I know, as I'm digging, I'm sitting there and I'm rolling over in my mind. Now, I know you guys do this too, because this is a course in mind training. Um, an untrained mind can accomplish nothing. And so we have all these juicy, rich lessons that we study and we roll over in our heads and we learn, we embrace them. And that's part of the beauty of what the course is all about. It's about training ourselves on how to see the world and how to see it differently so that we're not just haphazardly thinking anything or any thoughts or letting the weeds of our consciousness just grow wild. I mean, for the most part, we've learned here, we've learned through the course, we've learned through our teaching that our minds are much like a garden, and what you see come up is what you planted into it. And so if you want to reap a harvest that is rich with the things that you desire, what you want, what you put out there, then you need to make sure you're maintaining your garden, the garden of your mind. And so we pluck the weeds out. And so as I was sitting there thinking, about this woman telling me to, get out of her yard, I'm sitting there and I thought to myself, I was like, well, she's never been that nice to me anyway. And then the thought came up for me, but niceness doesn't have to be in her, but it does have to be in me. And I kept thinking, if there's not niceness in the relationship, it's because I've not brought it there. The course tells me what's missing is always what I fail to bring. I'm not worried about somebody else and what someone else is bringing. I'm always concerned with what it is that I'm bringing. And so, as I was having this thought, and I'm saying, well, if there's not love in the relationship, then it's because I didn't bring the love. It makes no difference what somebody else does. So, I am always concerned with Sandra and Sandra's thought process. Sandra and Sandra's thinking and not somebody else's. And so as I'm, digging and turning the soil and making holes to drop my cucumber seeds in, I um I kind of like heard some noise, and I look up and the lady next door is standing like maybe about 5 or 6 feet away from me. She got up on me without me hearing her just that quickly. And so when I lifted my head after having this dialogue with myself. I lifted my head and I looked at her and I said, "Hi, good morning." I mean, that was my response. Good morning. And so she's got this mean look on her face as if I'd done something to her. And she said, "Good morning." And so I began to talk to her. And she asked me the question just as simply, still with this mean look on her face. She says, "Do I know you?" And I called her name. Let's say Tracy. I was like, "Of course, Miss Tracy, I'm Sandy." Now she's known me because I grew up in this house since literally I was a year old. So she watched me not only as a child, but as a teenager. She's seen me as an adult, and then I've lived here for years. But this particular day, this morning, she says, "Do I know you?" Now, I don't know about you guys, but the immediate response was not about whether or not she's nice to me, whether or not I'm in my own yard or not. My concern totally turned around and went to, wow, she's got confusion today. Um, she has that, um, what do people call it? Dementia, Alzheimer's. I don't know, but this particular day, she didn't recognize me. And so I started to talk to her about her kids. Has your daughter been over today? And I called her daughter by name. Has she been by today? And she says, well, no, I haven't seen her in a few days. And I was like, no, she was here yesterday because I saw her and I heard her. And then I asked her, have you had breakfast yet? Because I know that they come over to give her her meals. And so then the conversation changed, and and as slowly as she started to come back to herself and remember, I kept thinking to myself that this whole question about mind control, what it is that we're bringing, what it is we're doing, and how we're responsible at every minute for the energy that we put out ourselves. So let me back up for a second, not because this is not a normal thing for me, but because it's just at this point where I want to like say that I am among the ministers of God. And so, because I am, there are certain things that I expect of myself. I expect for me to show up in love and to express love. And even when somebody forgets who they are, that I remember. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to remind one another who and what we are, and to recognize that only love is real, that only God is real. And this is our responsibility. So, yes, I am responsible for how I see the world and the relationships I have. The Christ love with love. Yes, absolutely. So, this is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The aim of the course is not to teach the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to your awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all encompassing can have no opposites. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way: nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So it's interesting what we know. I love that. I love that introduction to the Course in Miracles. What we know is what we have to bear witness to at every moment. And by bearing witness to it, we demonstrate that we know what we know. So if somebody comes to me and says things or does not act in ways that are loving towards me, it says to me that I am not supposed to respond to them in kind. It doesn't say that, and here, what you know what? I don't know what it says. Here's what I know: that who I am is not predicated upon what you or anybody else does to me. Who I am needs to be based on this thing that I believe, this thing that I proclaim within myself. I didn't come to the course and let the course or Christianity or any other religion make me the person that I am. I already came with a loving heart. I already came connected, totally one with spirit and with God. I came with that. What this does is it enhances and shows me the reasons in back of why it is that, that I desire to be who I am. And so it teaches me about peace. It teaches me about love. And it teaches me about a way that I can see the world and order the world so that I can be more fully present in it. So, for you and I and everybody else, we don't come into this thing as if we need to discover God through a teaching or a reading. It's not a discovery of God, but rather a revealing of your true nature to you. You were born within this framework, within this structure, totally one in and made out of the very substance of what God is. You don't discover it, it is what you are. And what we do here, the reasons why we are among the ministers or teachers of God, is because we have chosen to remind people about their truth when they somehow seem to have forgotten it. Because we get inundated with so much junk, with so much garbage from our television screens, from the media, from what we see on the streets, people who have forgotten their oneness. And so we get so inundated with all of this ego consciousness and race consciousness that we tend to forget about what's really the truth about our own being. And so if we didn't forget, I mean, we would always know and recognize our oneness. But because we have forgotten, it's this call that has gone out to the entire universe to remember, to remember. And so, as each of us remembers, all of us are called to remind another of who they are. And not just remind them, but also to look within ourselves for the blocks to our awareness. Remember what I just said in the introduction, to look within ourselves to find the blocks to our awareness. What is it that causes you to forget? What is it that causes you to get seeped in fearful thinking? What is it that causes you to see your brother as your enemy rather than as your savior? So, what is it that causes those things? And so, if we can look for what causes this misperception in our thinking, then we can start to get it at its root. I know for me, there's this dandelion that keeps coming up in my flower bed. And the thing, when it comes up, it just comes up like it's big and it's huge. And when you see the root of it in the ground looks like it's about an inch and a half in diameter. And this thing comes back with a vengeance. It comes back as if it doesn't realize that it is up against an opposing force that says that, that knows I see it for what it is. And when I see it, I'm going to get it because it's either this weed or it's my vegetables, right? And I have made a determination that I don't want the dandelion. And so when I see it, I know that I've got to like dig down deep because what seems to happen is I must get it somewhere in the midst of this root and not quite get the entire thing out. And so if I've not gotten the entire dandelion out, then it comes back full force as if it's saying that I'm here and I'm not giving up. I'm not relinquishing it. That's what your ego does to you all the time. I'm not trying to say to you that your ego is ever going to get to the point where it's not going to flare up on you. But the thing is once you recognize it for what it is, like if I didn't recognize the weed as a weed. I might let it fester and grow and not recognize that not only does it suck the life out of the things that's around it, but then it spreads. And so it becomes my job to stand guard over those things and to take it out like it needs to come out because it cannot stay. You know, they say that there is not a lot of rules that God has made for us. Not a lot. But what it does say is that you can't serve two masters. You cannot serve two masters at the same time. It just doesn't work. And so if I'm either going to, for me, I'm either going to grow a vegetable or I'm going to grow a weed. And so I'm not going to sit there and let this thing take over and go unchecked without me taking action in order to make it up, pull it up, and to get it out of there. And so what I do is that I am sitting there and I'm in my awareness. I'm saying to this dandelion that, you know, me and you are in the midst of, you know, of a power struggle here. I need to get you up whole and pull you out and get rid of you so that I can do what it is that I'm supposed to be doing with this particular area. So true is it with your mind as well. The more you let stuff fester and grow within your consciousness, if you give attention to the things that you don't want, then those things will continue to fester and to grow unchecked. And then you get so far off course, you don't even know where you got off course at. Now, here's the lovely thing, because I have told people in the past that it is those times that I have taken the detours off of the journey that I was on. I've taken detours and I've learned a lot through it. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about the areas, the other places that I could possibly get into and go into. I've learned a lot about all those things, but I've also learned that there are certain things that I need to do in order to stay where it is that I desire to stay in my consciousness. So if I get up and I do my meditation every morning, which is what's important to me. I do my meditation. I sit there in meditation, I do it, and then and that kind of sets the tone. That sets the tone for how I'm going to see my day. It's as if I get a spiritual download. That's part of my routine. That helps me out. That helps me to stay grounded in what it is that I see, or what it is that I'm choosing for myself. If I open up my book, I scan, I read, I do things to feed my own spiritual health. It is this constant thing, just like in the gardening scenario. It's constant work in order for us to remind ourselves of the truth that darkness is not an entity. Darkness is not an entity, it is a nothingness. And all that needs to happen for darkness to disappear is for us to recognize light as the truth. And so once we recognize the truth, darkness cannot, for any reason, consume the light that you are. So if you recognize your light, if you figure out what it is that it takes to keep your light shining bright, to keep you at 100 watts if that's what you need to be, or at the 90 if you want to pace yourself, whatever it is that you find out that you need, it means that you have to stay in practice or do the things that it is that you need to do in order to keep yourself on an even keel. For me, I know that I need to meditate on a daily basis. I know that I need to, to do some reading. I know that I need to realign myself. I know that, even as I'm digging in my garden and I'm reminding myself of what's important and what's truth for me, I know that I need to do that at times. I have seen people who close their eyes and will just say, you know what? this is not real, this is not real, this is not happening. I'm not trying to deny what I'm seeing is happening to me. What I am trying to do is to recognize that it's my mind that has been trained. It's my mind that where the correction is. It's in my mind that peace is. And the course says is, when you call for the correction, if what it is that you need to do is to correct your own thinking, ask the Holy Spirit to correct your thinking. Call for the correction. And it says, whoever's saner at the time, right? Whichever one of us is saner at the moment, let that person be the one who calls for the correction. And when my mind is corrected, then why not recognize that hers is too? Or hers has never been wrong in the first place. And so I recognize I'm proclaiming peace. I'm knowing that, that is the gift that I'm bringing to the situation. That's the gift of what I am. That's how I try to order my steps. And so I'm asking myself at every moment, what's my function here? What is it that I'm supposed to do here? And then I make a decision based on that. If I choose heaven, if I'm choosing heaven, then how is it that heaven shows up? How do I show up in the choice for heaven? Heaven sees me Heaven sees me as united with my brother, not separate from him. Heaven sees me on the same side of that fence, not standing on the other side trying to defend it. Heaven sees me as one with whoever. And so what I need to do is bring love to that situation. So when my mind is corrected, when I'm healed, when I receive the correction, I know that I am not corrected alone, right? The gift that is given is not just given to me alone, but to all of us. And it's up to all of us to recognize it and to embrace it. And yes, we get to heal together. So, I just, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Sometimes, sometimes when I listened to Joel Osteen the other day. He comes on really early here. Let me sip my tea. It has cooled to a perfect temperature for me. Um, it's so yummy, so yummy, so yummy. Good Earth Original. I keep advertising for their tea. I listened to Joel Osteen the other morning, and he comes on really early here. And so what I do, I have a TV in my room. I don't, um, I don't necessarily think or agree that electronics belong in the bedroom, but I have this little television in the bedroom, and I'll set the timer for it to come on right when Joel Osteen is supposed to come on at 7:30. And most of the time, it'll come on, the TV will come on, I'll hear it come on, and then I'll probably fall back to sleep. So I don't necessarily even get to hear it, but sometimes I fall back to sleep. And so I wake up, I fall back to sleep, I wake up, I fall back to sleep. It's a constant process, and I'm really trying to hear what he's trying to say, but most of the time I don't hear most of it. But I do remember that this particular time he started talking about he said that he had some tax issues, and he said that he had to hire an attorney to deal with the tax issues. So this attorney who lived out of state, he was talking about the attorney lived out of state, didn't know about some of the tax laws, caused him some more problems, and then he met somebody else, and he ended up I don't know, but he kept talking about all these different things that happened, this circuitous route and connections that he made with all these people around what seemed to be an issue for him, some trouble with the IRS. But he said that, that and what happened was is that all these people came into his life because of a result of seeming issues or problems. But then when he realized, once he got to a certain point, he realized that what these people brought was blessings that he needed to get a step further or a step closer to getting that center, that compact center where he does his where he holds church at. And he says, and a lot of times we look at these obstacles, these stepping stones, as something that's terrible or horrible, setbacks, so to speak, when really they're setups for us to recognize the blessings. So yes, we're we're here in a classroom. I know it doesn't seem like it, but we're here learning a course. We're taking a course. The course is showing us the truth about who we are. And if we stay in faithfulness, if we stay in a place of expectation, a place where we recognize that, that this is not some place that is against us, but really for our good, that love is our truth. If we stay in a spot where we recognize that as the truth, then we'll get the blessings, or we'll see the blessings and learn how to be grateful in the midst of it. All that reminds me of the song that I love to play for you guys, The Gifts That the Storm May Bring. The gifts that the storm may bring. Oh, because sometimes we tend to forget that the storm doesn't hold for us just bad things, but some things that are very good. And those challenges that come into our lives to show us something. And if we just stay in the place and just, I used to tell people that sometimes we don't know what to do. Sometimes things seem so huge and daunting and so beyond us to deal with it. But if we just stand in faith, knowing that it all works out, knowing that there is nothing else here, nothing to oppose us but God, if we give up these attack thoughts that we have and just recognize the truth that everywhere the only thing that you can possibly meet is God, is yourself, is you, then you will get the blessing that is to come out of this. I don't, and so even as I go through these things and I think, whatever the challenge may be, whatever it may be, I mean, if I stand in what I know, if I know that, you know that my brother, that there is, that he is me, that she is me, that this lady, that I don't have any issues. I mean, if we let go of our attack thoughts, then there will be no attack. The attack thoughts come when we attack ourselves by even believing that we could be attacked. There is nothing else out there trying to get you. And so it becomes this thing where we just stand up in what we've learned over and over again. And so if I come here and I hear over and over again that when I'm healed, I'm not healed alone, right? If I hear that, and I know that when I'm healed, I'm not healed alone, then why not? Why not? Here's my thing. Because we read this stuff about what Jesus said, about the crucifixion and the resurrection. We know this stuff about what Jesus went through. And so he's saying, you know what? I'm going to take this bitter pill. I'm going to take this bitter pill because I know the truth. I know the truth. And so I'll swallow this bitter pill so that you too can get the truth, because my healing is your healing. We're not separate in that. And so it becomes this thing of, I'm going to, whatever it is, I'm going to lay down my weapon. If I picked it up, I'm going to lay down my weapon. At the time, I just had a little shovel in my hand. At the time, I'm in there just cultivating my garden and doing the garden. I'm planting the seeds. And it was my place to just kind of put down my stuff and to say, I recognize you. Even when you forget who you are, I recognize and know you. It doesn't matter. And so sometimes I see people and their only response is as if they have had the mind training that says everything is an attack. And so their mind training tells them that everything is attack. And so they automatically respond as if they are under attack. And so they don't even give room for the possibility that somebody may have perceived something in error. It becomes this thing like, well, who do you think you're talking to? And then blah, 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 blah. And everybody is up in arms. And then this thing of peace and love is lost because nobody brought it into the conversation. Remember, yeah, remember what is missing is always what you fail to bring. If it's not there, it's because you didn't bring it. If you forgot to bring it with you to the party, guess what? Choose again. Because at every moment we get an opportunity to choose again. You know what? I must have been mistaken. I must have perceived you incorrectly. I must have not seen something here that I'm supposed to. So it becomes this thing of, yes, let me make the correction. Okay, so so let me catch my breath. So I looked down at my book and mm, I looked down at my book and I, of course, had turned to, because I heard on my way home from visiting my dad, I heard that I was supposed to look at lesson 137. And so when I am healed, I am not healed alone was the lesson 137 that I opened to. And so when I looked down at my book, I see this paragraph and it seems like I've got the whole entire paragraph circled and highlighted. So it says healing might thus be called a counter dream, which cancels out the dreams of sickness in the name of truth, but not in truth itself. Just as forgiveness overlooks all sins that never were accomplished, healing but removes illusions that have not occurred. Just as the real world will arise to take the place of what has never been at all, healing but offers restitution for imagined states and false ideas, which dreams embroidered into pictures of the truth, which dreams embroidered into pictures of the truth. Yet not healing is unworthy of your function here, for Antichrist becomes more powerful than Christ to those who dream the world is real. The body seems to be more solid and more stable than the mind, and love becomes a dream while fear remains the only reality that can be seen and justified and fully understood. So it's so interesting for me as I think about this perception that once we get to this healing, we'll realize that none of this stuff, all the stuff that we feared, all of these ideas about sickness and about illness and about attack and about anything that seems to stand contrary, all of those things disappear in the healing, in our healing. And so as we get to a place where we're recognizing the truth, all of that stuff will fall by the wayside. We'll realize that there is no struggle. There never was a struggle. I'll realize that I only thought I had a neighbor. My neighbor was simply myself walking up to the fence to give me something that I needed to see more clearly. It was nobody ever there. It was Sandra meeting Sandra at every moment. You guys, this is all about you and your healing. So you can put your name in place of that. Where I say it's Sandra meeting Sandra, you can say it's Lynn meeting Lynn, or Dove meeting Dove, or whoever meeting themselves at every instance. And this person is offering the healing to their brother. They're offering the healing to their brother. And as you offer it, remember that healing is never experienced alone. It's healing for all of us. Oh, you got to go to bed. Well, thank you so much for being here. Good night. Um, and so, yes, I mean, it's always just perfect. It's perfect because there's truly just that one. There's truly just that one. And so this becomes a lesson for all of us, for us to see things different, for us to heal, for us to recognize the truth, for us to remove the blocks. Remember, I said it up at the beginning. Remove the blocks to our awareness of love's presence, which is our natural inheritance. And so when we do that, we get to do, we are never healed alone. It's what we give, the gift that we give to the world and everybody else in it. Isn't that fabulous? All right, so you guys, right here, I am going to play a song for you because I want to, and because I've got some distractions going on for some odd reason. Apparently forgot something here. So let's see if I can play this song for you. And if I can, yes, here we go. So when I am healed, I am not healed alone. And what I would share my healing, and I would share my healing with the world, that sickness may be banished from the mind of God's one Son, who is my one self. Let healing be brought through you this day, and as you rest in quiet, be prepared to give as you receive, to hold but what you give, and to receive the word of God, to take the place of all the foolish thoughts that you have ever imagined. Now we come together to make well all that was sick, and offer blessings where there was attack. Nor will we let this function be forgot as every hour of the day slips by, remembering our purpose with this thought: when I am healed, I am not healed alone. I would bless my brother, for I would be healed with them as they are healed with me. You guys, happy Memorial's Day to you. I thank you for being here with me, and I will be back again on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. This has been Sandra Bishop. You know my website, sandrasaidit.com. Also, follow me on Twitter at San Bishop on Twitter, and on Facebook, I'm Sandra D. Bishop. And I just truly appreciate you guys. Dove, Lynn, everybody in the room. Much love and blessings to you. I'll see you on Wednesday at 7. Ta ta.